Hello everyone, this is Dr. David and welcome to tonight's webinar. Thanks for joining us. I am here with a very, very, very special guest, and I tell you, I'm excited about what's going to take place in the next hour or so, because this is a topic that is of extreme interest. And I have to say that medical school did not really prepare us for this kind of information at all, be it medical school or medical practice. And for a while, I've been looking at the whole gut-brain connection and have been amazed at what we found out, or what is out there about that connection. And I learn new things, and I'm like, why weren't we taught this in medical school? Why isn't this a part of our practice? And I think our guest tonight, whom I will introduce shortly, will be explaining to us just how important what goes into our bellies affects not only our brains, but every other part of our body. So get some coffee, get situated, be comfortable, because this is going to be a really good time tonight. All right, that's me, for those of you who are just coming on for the first time. And I'm the host and facilitator of most of these presentations. By the way, if you think about it, there's a term called democratization of knowledge, or democratization of information. People can go onto the internet, especially with the help of Google, and find out about pretty much anything. There's a lot of information out there, a lot of information where health is concerned, or where life, where relationships are concerned. But here's the problem: that it's just information. There aren't too many resources that piece that information together in a way that is relevant to you, for your situation, for your circumstance, for your background. Not much is gone by way of taking you from point A, let's say you have been diagnosed with cancer, to point B, where you've gone through all the treatments and you're in remission. How to deal with those things spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically, how to take care of yourself after treatment. And that's why we're doing what we're doing. Obviously, it's not just about physical health, but also about spiritual and mental health. But the primary thing is to help people understand how life and health really work, and what you need to know, the most important things, the foundations, the fundamentals. And once that is in place, the next step, obviously, is to point you to the most helpful resources out there. And of course, the resources could be people, they could be websites, they could be books, they could be tools that you can use to help regain your health. And that is why we are so glad to have our guest on to help us in further achieving that mission. And that's our vision in front of you, to be recognized as a trusted resource for obtaining valuable and practical information related to health, strength, and human effectiveness. And of course, you can go to our website, Building Strength Webinars. There are lots of resources, lots of great information out there that you can access. All right, remember folks, this presentation is, or the information that will be contained in this presentation or this discussion is not to be used as a replacement for your doctor's experts' care and attention. If you are on any long-term treatment for any kind of condition, please, please, please check with your doctor before making any drastic changes. This is very, very, very important. We are not here to replace your doctor's attention. Okay. Tonight it's about gut health and about Dr. Lipski. So I'm going to, first of all, read out a short bio, and then Dr. Lipski and I will shoot the breeze a little bit and chat about health, and then we'll show some of her slides as we go along. Okay, Liz Lipski is board certified in clinical nutrition and holistic nutrition. Her focus, or Liz's focus in her work, has lately been in the area of functional nutrition and whole foods nutrition. I'm sure she's going to explain what that means, with a specialty in digestive health and immune health. She is the director of doctoral studies and education director at Hawthorne University. She is also on faculty at Saybrook University, the Institute for Functional Medicine and speaks for the Autism Research Institute. She's the author of Digestive Wellness, now in its 4th edition, and Digestive Wellness for Children. She sits on the advisory board for Food as Medicine and the American Nutrition Alliance. Formerly, Liz was on the Nutrition Advisory Board for the Institute for Functional Medicine and Special Advisor to the National Institute for Nutrition Professionals. Wow, she's been busy. She offers mentoring groups for health professionals on clinical and functional nutrition. She lives with her husband, Chris, in Duluth, Georgia. Dr. Lipski, thank you so much.
Thanks for that nice introduction.
We really appreciate you making the time to do this, and I know we've had lots of great discussion before this, and I know you're actually very busy, as the bio we just read mentioned, that working with groups and teaching and studying and all that, and you really hardly have time for anything else. So again, thank you so much for making time to do this.
My pleasure.
All right, so how do you want us to do this? I know we're going to talk about several topics, and people can see we have a lot of things to talk about tonight. So we're probably going to be here till 12 midnight. I'm just kidding. But we have a lot to talk about. But I just want to mention that somewhere during our presentation, we're going to be talking about the bill, the monopoly bill that's threatening nutritionists for dietitians. But along the way, we'll mention that. But how do we start? Where do you want us to start? Well, do you want us to start with the American diets, the amazing American diets that is so nutritious?
Well, I think it's not a surprise to any of the listeners on the call that the American diet is a little bit depleted. The average person eats almost half of their meals out every day. And when we eat out, what we know is that the quality of the food is usually not as good. And about a quarter of the American population eats a third of their meals at fast food restaurants. So, and we know from studies that those foods don't have as many nutrients in them either. And there's a study that was done by the FDA called the Total Diet Study. And what they found was that when they looked at micronutrients, minerals, they found that over half of Americans ate less than 80% of the recommended dietary allowance for calcium, magnesium, iron, zinc, copper, manganese, and 90% were marginal in chromium, 80% deficient in vitamin B6, 20% of women iron deficient. And in the last NHANES study, they found that 17% of women of childbearing age were deficient in iodine, and we know that iodine deficiency is the #1 cause of mental retardation globally. Right. So, and I look at this and I go, well, magnesium alone is in over 300 different enzyme reactions in the body. So if magnesium doesn't work right, well, then we feel tense and uptight. We feel anxious. We don't sleep very well. So in terms of just kind of the brain, just that one nutrient, if we're missing that, and 80% of us don't meet the RDA levels for that, which is not surprising because we find it in green leafy vegetables and whole grains. And most people don't eat whole grains or green leafy vegetables. So, you know, I look at all this 90% marginal in chromium, and we think, well, chromium is really important for keeping our blood sugar levels even, as is vitamin B6 and magnesium. And so you look at that and go, wow, well, if people's blood sugar levels aren't stable and they have low blood sugar, well, how do they feel? They feel anxious and irritable and tired. And so when we look at brain function, we want to just think about a little bit nutrition. You want to hand me the, I'm going to grab and make myself the presenter here for a second.
Go ahead.
Let me just do that. Let me just kind of grab that and do that. And here we go. So this is an old, let me show my screen here. So this is an old slide that I've used for a long time. It originally came from Dr. Jeffrey Bland. And why I like it so much is because what we know about nutritional depletion is that first you have it without any kind of symptoms. You just don't notice anything. And then you start seeing it in laboratory testing. You might be able to pick it up a little bit, but still you might not have any symptoms. But if you measured for the nutrients, you might see that you were low in zinc or low in magnesium or chromium. And then the most interesting thing to me is that we start seeing physiological and psychological changes. So you start seeing tiredness and depression and mood swings, anxiety and nervous tension. And you start thinking about our population where, I don't know what the percentage is, but a large percentage of our population is on antidepressants, and we really have a lot of problems psychologically. So if we're not getting the right nutrients from our foods, is it any wonder that we're tired? And then if we move down to the next slide here, let me just kind of click on that. This slide is not meant for anybody to have to memorize the citric acid cycle, which is the Krebs cycle, which is how we make energy. But what I want you to note is that the same nutrients that we don't have enough of in our diets are the same ones that our body uses to produce energy. The B vitamins, B6, magnesium, manganese, zinc, all those were mentioned in the previous slide in the total diet study, that we don't even get enough of those in our foods, and amino acids. So if we're not getting the right nutrients, then we're going to feel tired. If we're going to feel tired, then we're not going to feel as happy as we necessarily could. So that makes sense?
It does. So one reason why it affects brain function is basically without getting enough nutrients.
Yeah. And that's just general nutrition. That doesn't have anything to do with the digestive system, but just in general. I presented these slides at the Autism Research Institute one time. They're always talking about how these autistic kids have mitochondrial damage, which the mitochondria are the little energy factories in our cells that produce energy, and they do it through the system. And what was so interesting is that, yeah, but if these kids are nutritionally deficient, which we know they are because they have faulty digestive systems and can't absorb all their nutrients, so if they can't get enough good fats, and if they don't have enough amino acids, which are the building blocks of proteins and muscle and neurotransmitters, and if they don't have the right minerals and vitamins, then how can their mitochondria work right?
Well, that makes sense. That makes sense. Now, how is that? Is it connected to the gut as well?
Yeah, because a lot of us. Let me pause here for a second. Let me go to a different slide. I wasn't really planning on us using slides, so we're
you want me to take it back while you're searching for the slides?
No,
or,
I got it.
Okay, good. Okay.
I got it. So let's see here. So show my screen. Pause, but why aren't you guys seeing my screen?
Oh.
You're not seeing the next slide that I have up, so I don't know why.
No, I'm still seeing the citric acid cycle.
Yeah. So let's see here. From current slide. Come on, show me that. Huh. Well, maybe I can't show it to you.
Sometimes it works better when I take it back, and that may loosen things up. I don't know.
Okay.
Let's just give it a try.
Okay.
All right.
Perfect.
All right. So back to my slide. I'm going to give it back to you right now. Let's see if that works.
Okay. Not wanting to work, really. Let's see here. Current slide. No, it resumes slideshow.
We're not even seeing your screen at all right now.
Yeah, sorry. It's just not wanting me to do this. I don't know why. But so you can take it back.
Okay. We can try it back there later on again, I'm sure.
Yeah.
It should work. Once it works the first time, it should work.
I know it should work. I just don't know why it's not. Oh, I have an idea why it's not. No, maybe not. Well, one of the things, let's kind of talk a little bit about digestion in the brain. And let's see, current slide. Sorry about that. Okay, so anyway, so one of the things that people should know is that digestion really starts in it starts in our brain. And so when we're sitting down to have a meal and we start looking at the food, that's when digestion starts. So when we start thinking about what we're going to make for dinner, or we start looking at food or smelling food cooking in a restaurant or in our own yummy kitchen, what happens is that our saliva starts making enzymes, and those enzymes are preparing to start digesting fat and also carbohydrates, and our stomach starts preparing our gastric acid to digest the food that's going to come in, mostly the protein, and our pancreas starts getting that information about what we're eating, and so we start preparing to release digestive enzymes and maybe some bile, because our body's getting ready. And this is a relaxing parasympathetic function, which is one of the reasons why when we sit down to eat, it's really good to sit down, take a couple of deep breaths, maybe say some grace, and to let your body know that, yes, you are relaxed and you're eating. So you're not standing up at the kitchen counter, you're not in your car, you're not at your desk, you're actually you're starting to think about, oh, I'm relaxing, because most of digestion is a parasympathetic function, which means that it works on our autonomic nervous system where we don't have to think about it, but it needs relaxation. So what happens when we're anxious, we're in a rush, and we just gobble our food down? Sometimes people do that, and what happens is then they don't feel well. And I know people who've stopped their GERD and stopped their indigestion just by slowing down and chewing their food and eating carefully. I had a friend who came to visit me when I lived in Hawaii, and he was on a life sabbatical, and he arrived with this enormous bottle of like 1,000 Tums. And I looked at it and said, wow, I've never seen a bottle of that big of Tums. And he's like, oh yeah, I've got really bad indigestion and heartburn. And so he started eating with my husband and my family and I every night, and every morning he'd take his little book and he'd go down to the beach to Hanalei Bay, and he would lay there and he'd go for walks and swims, and he'd come back all relaxed, and he'd eat a good homemade dinner with my family, and after a couple weeks he didn't need any more Tums. His digestion was great, because the stomach needs that relaxation. It needs us to be relaxed. And so when we're stressed out all the time, our digestive system doesn't work that well.
Now, how does that work exactly? What's the connection? I mean, people know this intuitively and experientially. We know butterflies in your stomach means digestion isn't going to work too well. What is the connection? I mean, why does that happen that way?
Well, we need a lot of energy to digest our food. I don't know if it was like this for you as a kid, but we would eat lunch and then they would say, well, you can't go swimming for at least 45 minutes. You have to go lie down after lunch. And the reason is because digestion takes a huge amount of energy. And so when we're still running around trying to digest our food, it doesn't work. Because most people, traditionally people would have a huge meal in the middle of the day, and they would do siesta for a couple hours. It was a great time. You clean up the kitchen, you take a nap, maybe you make love in the middle of the day. It was really great. But people don't do that anymore. We just eat and run. And so our bodies weren't historically designed for us to eat and run. And there are neurotransmitters in the gut. We make 90% of our serotonin in our gut. We make all of our neurotransmitters. Yeah. We make dopamine, we make norepinephrine, we make acetylcholine. We make all of those in our gut, and we make them in really big quantities. So, and what we use them for is to keep digestion running well. But when we're really stressed, we can get imbalances in those neurotransmitters just like we get in the brain. And the other thing that's really fascinating is the vagal nerve, which connects the brain with the digestive system. Almost all of the messages, like 80% of the messages, go from the digestive system up to the brain, not from the brain to the digestive system. So even though it's a two-way street, it's one of those things where it's kind of tricky. I'm going to try to take the reins here again and see if I can show you the slide that I've got here. So here we go. So this slide from Gastroenterology Insights 2009 shows some of the combinations of how the gut-brain connection works. So if you start at the top where it says behavioral changes, and then you can see that there's an arrow that goes to the brain. So let's say that, that I'm very stressed about something in my life. I'm undergoing a divorce, or I just found out that somebody really close to me is sick, or I just lost my job, or I've been unemployed for a year, or, something behaviorally changes in my life, or I decide that I'm going to go on a vacation, I'm going to go skiing. I live in a kind of moderate place, and suddenly I'm in this really cold weather, and I didn't really prepare for it, and I'm kind of out of shape. All of these are behavioral changes, and they go to the brain, and the brain, if it perceives that as stress, what happens is it alters our gut physiology, and we have increased susceptibility to having inflammation in the gut, which causes change in the gut microbiome, which is the bacteria in our gut, of which we have somewhere between 3.5 and 4.5 pounds. And what we know about those that gut microbiome is that it runs our metabolism. It makes B vitamins and vitamin K for us. It protects us against cancerous substances. It makes little bits of antibiotics to protect us, and that we have actually 10 times more bacteria in our gut than we have cells in our body, and 99% of the DNA in our body comes from bacteria, not from human cells. So we have 10 times more bacteria just in our gut alone than we have cells in our body, and 99% of the DNA in our body comes from bacteria.
That is amazing.
It's totally amazing. I mean, it's totally amazing. So you kind of wonder, who hosts who here, really? Who's calling the shots? Because, really, because who's calling the shots here? And when these bacteria get imbalanced, then we start getting depression and anxiety and all kinds of other things. And I have some slides to show you on that. So the changes in the gut bacteria cause low-grade inflammation, and then we might get symptoms like gas or bloating or irritable bowel or GERD or something else. On the other hand, you can start with a bacterial infection in the gut, and that could be parasites or bacterial infection or a yeast infection like candidiasis. So we could start from and that affects the brain, and that makes us behave differently, and it can also cause low-grade inflammation in the gut with symptoms, with GI symptoms too. So some of the things that we know is that when we have people with mental health issues, we have a lot of irritable bowel syndrome. So this is from the American Journal of Therapy, and what they report is that 10 to 20% of people in the United States have irritable bowel syndrome. And irritable bowel syndrome is characterized by either diarrhea or constipation or alternating constipation and diarrhea, undigested food in the stools, feeling like you have incomplete bowel movements, or also just gas, bloating, cramping. You know, bowel movements should be easy and effortless, and we shouldn't even really think about them at all. So anyway, so 10 to 20% of the U.S. population at any one time has irritable bowel, and 70 to 90% of patients with irritable bowel syndrome who go to a doctor for treatment also have mental health issues, mainly mood and anxiety disorders.
And that's because of an imbalance in the neurotransmitters as a result of the gut going awry, or is there another reason to that?
Well, it's also because of the previous slide that I showed. When we get changes in gut bacteria, it causes low-grade inflammation, and that low-grade inflammation can be low-grade inflammation in the brain as well as in the digestive system.
Wait, are you saying that low-grade inflammation in the gut translates to some inflammation in the brain as well, or is it concurrently? Is it one after the other?
I don't know that that's been well delineated, but it doesn't happen in everyone, because you can see that it doesn't happen in everyone, but in 70 to 90% of people with irritable bowel syndrome, they also have some kind of mood issue. So you see 19% of people with irritable bowel syndrome also have schizophrenia, and 29% of people with irritable bowel have major depression. And 46% of people with irritable bowel also have panic disorder. And what we know about irritable bowel syndrome is that naming it doesn't solve the problem, because in medicine, the way that doctors think about irritable bowel syndrome primarily is, well, just eat more fiber and you'll be fine. But that works for some people, but for people it doesn't work for, then you really want to start looking and say, well, what is the underlying factor that might be causing this? And we know that in different studies, anywhere from 50% to 78% of people with irritable bowel syndrome actually have a low-grade bacterial infection called small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And when they're treated, they feel better. So it would almost be like if doctors knew how to diagnose strep throat, but then they didn't know how to treat it. And that's what's going on with irritable bowel. I work with Mark Pimentel and Weinstock are the two primary researchers in that area. And then other people have food sensitivity. So for some people, just stopping dairy products or stopping gluten-containing grains or eggs or citrus fruit or, you know, almost any food can actually stop their irritable bowel syndrome. And then for other people, taking probiotics can be useful. And then other people, meditation or getting exercise. And so, you know, in medicine, we like to name things and blame them, you know, and then give a drug for them. But it's like understanding what the underlying factors might be help us be more effective at doing that.
Is there a way, like a questionnaire, a way for people to quickly hone in on what that problem is? Because to me, it seems like, I mean, people, someone walking off the street and listening to this will say, okay, well, I think I have irritable bowel syndrome, but how do I know which of these apply to me? Which of these is the cause?
Well, in digestive wellness, I go through it pretty thoroughly, and I go through all of this. And there's questionnaires there to help you figure out, could it just be low hydrochloric acid that I have, or do I maybe have leaky gut, or do I have irritable bowel syndrome? And then there's sections in the book on, everything, so that you can go and say, well, I can try this and see. And I've been working with teaching for the Institute for Functional Medicine, and one of the things that we've come up with is kind of the underlying causes of digestive issues. And let's see if I can find a slide on that I can just show you real quickly too. But we've come up with okay, from current slide. Man, we're doing that again. Well, this was one on migraine, fibromyalgia, depression. People with irritable bowel have a 40 to 80% greater incidence of migraine, fibromyalgia, and depression. GI issues and autism, they're just rampant. Probably about 2/3 of kids with on the autistic spectrum have GI issues. And when we change their diets, about 2/3 of kids start feeling better and their GI stuff feels better. But that's not what the slide that I really wanted to show you. And in celiac disease, which is genetic disease associated with gluten intolerant, people really cannot tolerate gluten, and it increases their risk of developing autoimmune disease, the other autoimmune diseases. But you can see from the NIH consensus statement on celiac, variety of neuropsychiatric conditions such as depression, anxiety, peripheral neuropathy, ataxia, epilepsy, migraine have been reported in people with celiac. And so when I'm working with somebody who has a neurological issue, one of the first things I do is take them off of gluten-containing grains, which are any kind of wheat, spelt, rye, barley, and then I take them off of oats because oats can be contaminated. Anyway, and then neurological issues. 72 people with celiac disease, migraines in 28%, carpal tunnel syndrome in 20%, 35% history of psychiatric disease, depression, personality changes, or psychoses, and 35% with deep sensory loss. And all of this is just because they have leaky gut and a genetic predisposition to celiac disease. And, I think that a lot of psychiatrists and therapists don't really think about how food can affect brain function. If it's the wrong food for you, it can really make you not be able to think right.
Right. The size of your slide, it's taken up this, we only seen a part of the slide. It seems like the slides are so big. I don't know.
Let me do something there to try to fix that. Let's see. Let me kind of escape here, and let's see if I can try to fix that. Let me see here. So you're not seeing the whole slide.
Right. We're being cut off like neurological issues. I don't see anything past that on the right side. So we do see the first few words on each point, but that's it.
Huh. Well, so is this any better?
We don't see a change.
I don't know why. I don't know why the slides are so big.
Are they big on your side?
Yeah, I can see the whole thing. I can see the whole thing. Let me go to view. Oh, I see how you can't really see it. Well, I guess I'll just tell you about things then. Let me give you back the.
No. I think it's still good for us to see. I mean, we can see part of it, and we can see the. Yeah.
I don't know why it's doing that. I really don't. I just don't get it.
Well, funny things happen on these systems.
They do.
Yeah. I've been at this 4 years. Something always funny always comes up. Please go ahead. So I have a question really quickly here too, though. So celiac disease, my gosh, I know personality changes as well. And I know you worked with Alice Bath a couple of years ago, who is the founder of the National Foundation for Celiac Awareness, and she had dealt with celiac disease, although she didn't know what it was, for 18 years. She had a couple of miscarriages, her teeth were cracking, she was always depressed, and had no idea what was going on. Went to every doctor possible until her veterinarian mentioned that maybe it could have something to do with celiac. And boom, they found out what the problem was, and that's, as they say, the rest is history. How do we help people so that they don't have to go through all those years of torment?
Well, I think it's really important for people to know food is information. Alessio Fasano, who's probably the preeminent celiac researcher in the country out of University of Maryland, and he says, in order to have celiac disease, we have to have three things. We have to have the right genetics. So what's known so far is that you either have the D2Q or the DQ8 gene, but about up to 40% of us have that gene, have one of those genes. So we need to have the right genetics. So 40% of us have that, but only 1% of us actually develop celiac disease. What's going on there? And so what he says is, well, what we also need to have is a leaky gut. So we could have a leaky gut because we're too stressed, or because we eat terribly, or because we have taken so many antibiotics or birth control pills or steroids, or we party too much on alcohol, or we take too many non-steroidal anti-inflammatory medications for pain like aspirin or Motrin, because they rip apart, the gut lining. And so all those things can degrade the gut lining, which is just, it's like one cell thick. And how I like to think of the mucosal lining, this one cell thick lining, it looks like a towel. You know how there's like little tiny loops on a towel, and there's all those little tiny threads that come off the little tiny loops? Well, that's what the inside of our gut looks like. And so if we I even have pictures of that, I think, somewhere. Let's see if you guys can see this. Let me unpause from current slide. Don't do this to me. I don't know why we are having so much trouble here. But let's see. I can get this. I just can't get it in any kind of order that I was hoping to. So now you'll be able to see this, I hope. So this is what the inside of a healthy gut looks like. It looks kind of like a towel, doesn't it? It's got all these little kind of projections, and those are called the villi. And coming off of those are microscopic things we can't see called the microvilli. And this is how we digest and we absorb all of our food. And if you could lay this out flat, it would be the size of a tennis court. It's big. It's big. But in celiac disease, these get flattened out. Oh, and these are the microvilli. So you can see, and I know it's kind of cut off, but at the bottom of your screen there's like a fringe that gets cut off at the bottom. I don't know why it is, but it is. And then, so, this is what they look like, and there's a blood supply that come up. But in celiac disease, what happens is that they get blunted. So the ones that are on the left are normal, but you can see the ones on the right, even though they're kind of cut off, you can see how short they are. And if you look at the gut of autistic kids or people with celiac, it's just all flat and inflamed. So people with celiac can't really even absorb any of their nutrients. And so that's why they get really thin and they have diarrhea, but not everybody presents that way. So your original question was, so how can we prevent this from happening? I think we just need to keep talking about it. And I think people need to go into their doctors and say, I want to be tested for celiac disease. And, it's like most people will test normal. But what I want to say is that in my experience, even people who have completely normal tests for celiac disease, when they go off gluten-containing grains, they start feeling better. And so I have people who come to see me and they go, if I get I had one client who we took her off of sugar and we took her off of gluten-containing grains. And her depression just totally lifted. So she was in a real stressful time, and she rewarded herself after the stress was over with a huge piece of cake. And her depression was so debilitating that she couldn't get out of bed for 2 days. So, I mean, she's not the only one. I've seen this happen over and over and over and over. So, so the slide I'm showing you, and sorry you can't see it that well, this is the gut in celiac disease, and you don't see any of those little folds. None of those villi or microvilli are there. And so without that really big absorptive surface, then all kinds of health issues happen because you're not getting nutrients. And if we don't get nutrients, then the cells don't work properly anywhere in the body. And that's why digestion is so critically important. There are some newer tests for celiac, for like gluten intolerance. There's a lab called EnteroLab that uses stool samples and does genetic testing. There's also a lab called Prometheus Lab that can do genetic testing. I think through most of the regular labs, you can ask your doctor to do genetic testing, but genetic testing, as I said, will be positive in about 40% of us. So it's only really useful like if you have a family member with celiac or gluten intolerance and you want to know if you're likely to also have it. And the best thing you can do is just go off gluten for a few weeks, 100%, and see how you feel. I had one client who went off gluten-containing grains, felt like $1 million bucks, and then he went out and had sushi, and he had sushi that had soy sauce in it. The soy sauce had a little bit of wheat in it, and he had irritable bowel syndrome, arthritis, and depression for days afterwards.
Oh dear, you just can't take chances with this thing, can you?
No, but the thing is, he tested negative for celiac disease, but he was that gluten sensitive. I see this all the time, and the great thing is that if you just have a little bit of willpower, I put people on an elimination diet all the time, and it's in my book, and it's also up on digestivewellnessbook.com if people want to go get it. It's the elimination diet. What you can eat are fruits and vegetables. If you have arthritis, sometimes I'll tell you not to eat nightshade family foods like tomatoes, potatoes, eggplant, and peppers. But otherwise, pretty much, everybody can eat all vegetables. Chicken, fish, other kinds of poultry, and non-gluten containing grains, so things like rice and quinoa and millet and amaranth. and tapioca, and olive oil and coconut oil, and good oils, ghee, and seasonings, herbs and spices, and just eat that way for a few weeks. And it means cooking at home or being really careful when you go to restaurants, but it's amazing. Elimination diets reduce inflammation and have the biggest bang for our buck for pain management, depression, anxiety. Like if we had a drug that could do all these things, it would be the #1 selling drug of all time. And it's just food. It's just food, and it doesn't cost a lot to do it. You don't have to go see somebody fancy to do it. It can be completely in your own hands.
So fruits and veggies, again, could you mention the top veggies that you would be a good way to go for the elimination diet?
The top veggies, any vegetables, but for detoxification, all of the cruciferous vegetables, so broccoli and Brussels sprouts and cauliflower, and I love putting red cabbage in my salad, and kale and collard greens, and all of those are really useful, but all vegetables are useful. And same with onions and garlic and leeks, and all the foods in the onion family also have a lot of sulfur in them and are also very detoxifying, also hormone balancing. So those are other really good vegetables, but all vegetables are good. It's like if we all had somewhere around, 3 to 9 cups of fruits and vegetables a day, we'd all be so much healthier.
Right. But I would think too that because of these the guts being so unhealthy and maybe raw or damaged in celiac disease, some of them may not be able to tolerate the some kinds of vegetables and fruits.
Yeah, when people have yeast overgrowth or when they have bacterial infections, what the yeast and what the bacteria eat is carbohydrate. So the sweeter, the better. So there are a lot of diets out there like the specific carbohydrate diet, the FODMAPs diet, the gut and psychology syndrome diet, or any of the anti-candida diets, or even like the Atkins diet. They really limit the amounts of carbohydrates that we eat so that we're not feeding the bugs. So yeah, some people would have to do that. And then there are other people who I work with that they're in such bad shape that I have them doing mostly soups and purees and diluted fresh vegetable juices and really making baby food out of their food. And I discuss all of this in digestive wellness as well. Because, some people, we're just so debilitated that we can't tolerate it. And so then things like green drinks and smoothies and vegetable and chicken broths and beef consomme, really gut healing.
I think we should take a break here to talk about this very important bill that's coming up. But I want to make sure that as many people as possible hear about it and hopefully can do something about it. What we were talking about yesterday was about the monopoly bill. Could you talk about that for a little bit?
Well, yeah. I hold a PhD in nutrition, and I'm board certified in clinical nutrition and in holistic nutrition. And the way the laws stand in most states right now, I'm not even legal to do nutrition in many states. I live in Georgia, and here I can't be licensed, but I can practice. But when I lived in North Carolina, I was given a cease and desist notice from the Board of Dietetics and Nutrition for practicing without a license. And then when I applied, they said I didn't meet the minimum educational requirements because I didn't have a degree in dietetics. My degree is in clinical nutrition. So, right now we have these monopoly laws in a lot of states. I don't know exactly how many, but over 30 states. And currently, there are bills that have been presented in a number of other states. So if you live in any of these states and you want to protect your right to see the kind of nutritionist you want to see, or you're a clinician and you use nutrition in your practice, or you're a health coach, or you're a psychologist who works with people and tells them to make dietary changes, you may be violating the law if these pass. And so if you live in New York, New Jersey, West Virginia, Hawaii, Illinois, let's see, if you live in any of those states, I feel like I'm missing some state here, but if you live in any of those states, you might want to look on the state government website and search under the bills that say dietitian, and find out what legislator is sponsoring that and what committee it's in, and just make a quick phone call and say that you oppose the bill and that you want to have your right to see the kind of nutritionist you'd like to see. Because I know that in Illinois right now, the current bill that they're proposing would put a $5,000 fine on someone like me every day that I practice nutrition in Illinois, even though I'm 100% qualified.
That is, to me, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah, to me too.
Well, so what would you like? What would you like our guests to do in this situation?
Well, I would love, if you're on Facebook, I would love you to go to the Facebook. There's a page called United in Health, and it'll give you the scoop on every state and what's going on and who you should contact. And that's updated pretty much almost every day with the latest news about what's going on in various states. So again, it's Facebook, United in Health.
Okay, that's good. Folks, we really encourage you to do that because it's very important that we have access to information and to the right experts who can walk us through these things. Because like you just noticed, if you've been on this call with Dr. Lipski, is this. Things happen to us, and there are so many things that could go wrong. And the more you're able to get it in front of the right person or with the right information, the easier you will be able to find out what those problems are and deal with them, especially when it comes to kids who probably won't be able to explain their symptoms as well as an adult can. So it's very, very important that people rise up and really put their voices, let their voices be heard. So one more time, the Facebook page.
It's called United in Health.
United in Health. Okay, great. Thank you. All right, let's get back to the gut health. This is intriguing. All right, in celiac disease, we have a problem with digestion and a problem with absorption because the villi are all damaged, right?
Right. And we also have leaky gut, which then makes more inflammation and more maldigestion and more malabsorption. And
explain leaky gut, if you don't mind, for our guests.
Okay. Well, I actually even have a picture, so I can show you that. Hopefully you'll see my screen. Oh, it's cut off, but I think you'll still be able. I don't know why it looks like that. But anyway, what leaky gut is, remember when I was explaining
Go ahead. Sorry about it.
What I was explaining about how the gut mucosa, those villi, are only one molecule thick. And so what happens is that how, and I'm not going to be able to show you this little video, and I apologize for that because I can't get the size of the screen to work, the slide to work. But what happens is that if there's irritation or inflammation, then what happens is that those cells are pushed together and they're very, very tight, and those are called tight junctions. And so it's like if you put your hands really tightly together, nothing's going to go through there. And so that's how the cells are designed. But when they're inflamed, there's little places where they get pushed apart, just like, you know, if you bash your finger, it swells. And so if there's a little bit of inflammation in that lining, the cells get pushed apart. And so then molecules that are way too big actually get into the bloodstream, because the small intestine, its job is to absorb all these nutrients, at the same time not to let anything into the bloodstream that shouldn't go there. So when we have leaky gut, we end up getting bacteria, yeast, fungus, toxins, food molecules that are too big. All those flood into the bloodstream, and then because we don't have the mechanisms to deal with those, the immune system treats them like they're garbage. And so we start an immune reaction against foods, which can be seen as food allergies or food sensitivities. We also start seeing reactions to, you know, when people have candidiasis, we start seeing reactions where people start becoming more and more intolerant of various foods. And the immune system gets totally wrapped up in trying to protect us because this barrier has been breached. You still there?
I was on mute, and I was saying that was a great explanation. Sorry, I didn't realize I was on mute. That is interesting. Okay, okay.
I wish I could show you this movie, but it's like I can't move the screen. I can't figure out how to do that. No, I didn't do it. I mean, I moved
something
it.
happened though. Yeah, the slides kind of it changed.
Oh, it did? Let's see.
Yeah. Changing again.
Let's see. If I keep moving it up, oh, maybe we can do this. Okay, let's try this. I'm gonna click this and see if it'll go. Let's see. Oh, it's not gonna let me do it. It's not gonna let me do it. For some reason,
well,
it's just not going to let me do it. But anyway, you can see that the junctions are very tight together, and that in the next slide, which I'm going to have to do the same thing with, move it all the way up. In the next slide, you can see, hopefully, you can see that the spaces between the cells aren't good. And if I could make the movie go, you'd be able to see that molecules are just passing right through in between. But what you'd also see is that molecules that should be able to pass, there's so much inflammation on this barrier that they can't. You know how when we get a cold and we build that sticky mucus? Well, when there's inflammation, we build sticky mucus, and then even the nutrients can't get through. And that's what happens in celiac disease.
Is it something similar happens with kids with autism? Let's talk about that for a little bit as well.
Well, we at Thoughtful House, they're just completing a study on children with autism and leaky gut, and they are finding that nearly all the kids. I haven't seen the published study yet, but when I talked with them about it recently, it looked like almost all the kids had leaky gut. But we also see this happening in people with migraines, eczema, psoriasis. You see this a lot in people who have depression, schizophrenia, anxiety. We see this in people with different kinds of arthritis, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome. So we see this as an underlying mechanism in many health issues.
So would this be what? Is this like a chicken and the egg kind of question, or does one cause the other, or this is just what accompanies those mental, psychiatric, psychological problems?
you know, from that earlier slide that I showed you about how it works both ways, and that we know that most of the information from the vagal nerve goes from the digestive system to the brain. And so I really believe that a lot of faulty digestion is the underlying cause of a lot of the mental, emotional issues that we develop.
That is almost heresy from a doctor's and MD's perspective. I mean, it's revolutionary.
It is, but the research substantiates it, and it's just the physiology substantiates it. It's just kind of it's such an unfolding story, and there's so much that we don't know about it.
Oh my! Because
I guess
everything.
You know, next is, so this is the problem, but then what do we do, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't want to leave people there, you know, and so all those gut healing diets, there are specific nutrients like L-glutamine. So, you know, the brain uses such a huge amount of the glucose in our body, right? But the digestive system can use glucose, but the small intestine prefers L-glutamine, which is an amino acid. So it's a component in protein, and unlike a lot of our other amino acids, glutamine is a loner a lot of the times. It likes to be by itself to do stuff, and it's an introvert, I guess. And so we use glutamine to heal and maintain and to grow new cells of the small intestine. And so I will recommend L-glutamine for people therapeutically. And I'll either recommend a brand called PERQUE, P-E-R-Q-U-E, at 1,500 milligrams twice daily on an empty stomach, or I'll recommend a powdered L-glutamine, and I'll use somewhere between 1 teaspoon a day, which is about 4 or 5 grams, all the way up to 20 grams of glutamine a day to try to heal that. I'll also sometimes use a bioflavonoid called quercetin, and I'll use that at various amounts, somewhere between 1,000 and 3,000 milligrams a day of that. And then probiotics really help. And then, you know, eating healthier foods and also being less stressed. Because stress, this lining, it repairs and replaces. These cells repair and replace themselves every 3 to 5 days. So if we're under a lot of stress and we eat the wrong foods, that doesn't happen. So glutamine and quercetin are two nutrients that really help that happen very well. And there's a million companies who make those.
Any specific recommendations, company-wise?
Company-wise, again, the quercetin products that I like the best are made by a company called PERQUE, P-E-R-Q-U-E. And there is a professional line, but if you look online, you can find it, or if you go to my website, you can find it. Or you can just call them directly and say, where can I find this locally? And they'll tell you. They make a quercetin with grapeseed extract that really works just better than anyone I've ever tried. L-glutamine, I'm not so picky about. I like the PERQUE one because you can use less because it recycles itself. But any product that's 100% glutamine is good. So Allergy Research makes a good one. Vital Nutrients makes a good one. Jarrow, which is a health food store product, it's a pretty good product. There are just a lot of them on the market, but you just want to make sure it doesn't have any binders or fillers, that it's just 100% L-glutamine.
Great, great.
And people feel better when they take L-glutamine. I've had people who, you know, when we're sick for a long time, you know how you feel weak? And L-glutamine, we rob our cells of it, And so when you start repleting L-glutamine, sometimes people say, wow, my endurance is better, I can exercise better, I can carry the groceries better, my muscles just feel so much better. And then in terms of probiotics, I think it's really important to get an excellent brand of probiotics. And so if you're going to a health food store, I would ask at the health food store, what are your best probiotics? Some of the health food store brands that are excellent are Natron. Udo's Choice makes some excellent ones. Nutribiotics. I'm just trying to think who else in health food stores. And then non-health food store brands are Metagenics makes great ones, Claire Labs, again, Perk makes good ones, Transformation Enzymes. Kirkman is an over-the-counter brand that makes good probiotics. There are just so many. There are just so many good companies. But when Consumer Labs looked at probiotics, so many companies failed. So you want to make sure that you get a good quality brand.
And those are the ones you just mentioned.
Mm-hmm. There are more than that, but Thorne Research makes good products. Health Food Store, New Chapter has interesting probiotics. There's a lot of good companies out there.
Okay, so if we were to look at the fundamentals, the most important things that we should we should consume that would help the gut either heal itself, repair, regenerate. What would be your top 5? Obviously, I'm sure you would include these first two, L-glutamine and probiotics, right?
The next thing I would say is to make bone broth from scratch. So I have a little YouTube video that is on how to make bone broth because people look at you like, I don't have time to do that. But it takes less than 5 minutes to get a pot of broth in a slow cooker or on your stove. And then it's just a matter of letting it sit there and slow cook and cook for, anywhere from 12 to 24 hours. So, traditionally people in European cultures and everywhere, they made broth. And these broths have been used for, studied for at least 100 years, and they help heal this because they're filled with glutamine and glucosamine and proline, and they're alkalizing, and they're really gut healing. And so making broth and using those to steam vegetables or cooking your quinoa or your brown rice or white rice in, or using them as soups, as the base for soups, or just drinking the broth, very, very gut healing. Other things that are also gut healing are, again, your fruits and vegetables, especially fresh vegetable juices, things like carrot juices with kale and parsley and cilantro and ginger and turmeric in them. They're anti-inflammatory because of the amount of polyphenols. And so really the more fruits and vegetables we can eat, the better. And those are really my top foods. Ginger is very anti-inflammatory, turmeric, anti-inflammatory. All these are very healing. And I think that's my top 5.
Okay, glutamine, probiotics, bone broth, fresh veggie juices, and then ginger and or turmeric.
Mm-hmm.
Great. And this is over a period of time. What have you found works best? How long?
Yeah, you have to do it over a period of time because even though the cells are new, it's like I still have the same spots on my skin even though I have new skin every 21 days. And it takes, 3 to 12 months to really heal your gut all the way. And again, coming back to the elimination diet, figuring out which foods are not good for you. or going on a specialized diet. It's so important to try to figure out, and it's important to try to work with somebody who can help you sort through this. I would encourage people to go to the Institute for Functional Medicine website. It's functionalmedicine.org is their website, and you can find an integrative doctor there who really understands this kind of information, or a nutritionist there who understands this kind of information. And they can really work with you to do testing to help you figure out what's going on, because sometimes it's tricky to figure it out.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, it sounds really, it can be really involved and complicated, especially when you're dealing with kids.
It can be, but it can also be really simple. Just change your diet, do an elimination diet, make sure you're getting enough sleep, make sure that you're, cooking your foods and getting enough rest. And so sometimes it's miraculous, because sometimes in a week or two, people are like completely new. It's amazing. It's just amazing.
Okay, well, we've got some questions here. Now, Doc,
okay.
Someone, I don't know how much, I know it's later over there in the East Coast where you're at, so we'll just go as long as you're able or willing or can go. Just shoot me a text or something, okay, to let me know.
Okay.
What.
Well, let's just go like another 10 minutes and take some questions. How's that?
Sounds good. Sounds good. Now, someone mentioned you can actually control the size of your screen by, you see that note? It says go to view, and then on the full screen you can actually reduce the size. Do you see that?
View.
View, then full. Are you on full screen there?
Oh, that's an option, full screen. Well, it's just not working.
It's not working. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. You want me to read the questions out, or do you want to select the ones you want to read?
Oh, fit to window. Let's see.
Mm-hmm.
Fit to window. No, it just makes it anyway. So we're not going to mess around with that.
Okay. It just means you're going to have to come back again, because this time we'll get it right, right?
Yeah. Okay.
All right. You want to read the questions out, or you want me to?
No, why don't you ask me the questions?
Okay. Do you have any suggestions, Susan wants to know, on how to support the digestive system when a child is battling with PANDAS? Do you know what that is?
PANDAS, okay.
Yeah.
So PANDAS is an ongoing strep infection that we see in a lot of kids on the autistic spectrum, and maybe other people as well. And honestly, I haven't studied it as well as a lot of other people, but there are some, because it's a bacterial infection, you do want to try to starve out the bacteria, and so one of these specialized diets like a low-carbohydrate diet, either specific carbohydrate diet, gut and psychology syndrome diet, or the new kid on the block, which is the FODMAPs diet, and there are books on all of those, would be helpful. And then also, Claire Labs has some products specifically designed, probiotic products specifically designed to help work with PANDAS, and I'm not sure if also possibly Kirkman, which is a supplement company, I'm not sure if they also have some PANDAS probiotics and supplements, but that's where I would begin.
Okay, great. Still on PANDAS, do you have any suggestions on how to support the digestive system, or you've answered that? Is it similar to dealing with other autoimmune disorders, or are there special considerations because of dealing with strep? And again, we can go to those books that you mentioned.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. there certain foods, like fermented foods, that can build up in the bowel?
Well, foods don't build up in our bowel, but so I'm not really sure what the question is. But fermented and cultured foods are a two-edged sword, because let's say that you start eating a lot of yogurt or taking a lot of probiotics or eating a lot of sauerkraut because you heard that it was really good for you, and you just start doing that. Well, there are probiotic bacteria that are in those foods, and when we start taking in a lot of probiotic bacteria, what happens is that we have a competitive little war going on with the other people, the other bacteria that are already populating the gut. And so I think what you might be asking is, could that be causing gas and bloating? Yeah, it could be. But that's actually kind of a good sign, because it says, well, you're moving out something that shouldn't be there. You're having a little war. So I would say do it more gingerly, so that you, less aggressively, so that you're not feeling discomfort, because nothing really, the food doesn't stay in the bowel. So again, I'm just answering what I think you're asking.
Okay. Anita, if you still have if you want to clarify that, give us a clear insight into your question, type it out, please. Do you have soup recipes online? Ginzo wants to know.
There's one in my book, and there might be some on my website. I'm not sure. And there is, as I said, a YouTube video. If you go to YouTube and you look at Innovative Healing on YouTube, there's a YouTube Innovative Healing page with all of the videos I've made, and one of them is how to make chicken soup.
Okay, and here are her websites here, folks, so you can take a look at them while we're answering the questions, or while we're reading all the questions.
I see one. Is there a possible causal or therapeutic link between serotonin levels and IBD, inflammatory bowel disease? From Karen. I'm sure that there is. I have not looked at the research on it. But what we know is that serotonin regulates peristalsis, which is the rhythmic contraction of how the small intestines and large intestines move. And there probably is. I haven't looked at the research on that.
Okay, looks like you answered Anita's question, so we're fine there. Next question. Please, can you tell me why colonics are supposed to eliminate fecal matter that is lining the bowel, sometimes several pounds? Now, what is your take on colonics in the first place?
Well, I have a lot of opinions about colonics. First of all, I think they're a great therapeutic tool. There are some of my clients with autoimmune diseases and other issues who feel like colonics really help more than anything else. And I do think that they help remove toxic load, and that's why they work. On the other hand, I think that the theories that are postulated by colon hydrotherapists are wrong. And I know that's a really strong statement, but if you've ever, one of the things that they say about colonics, one of the tenets of colon hydrotherapy is that our bowels are encrusted with fecal matter, and that when you do a colonic, it gets rid of all this incrustation, and that's why we lose these pounds and pounds. And if you've ever had a colonoscopy, you just take a laxative, and your colon is completely clean. And I once asked, when I was first hearing about this, I asked somebody who was assisting at autopsies, I said, so, when you go inside the bowel, what does it look like? Is it encrusted with fecal matter? And they're like, no, you just kind of gently spray it, and it and it cleans off. And so that part of it, I think, is wrong. But I do think that it reduces the toxic load, and that it can be a really great therapeutic tool as long as you use it occasionally instead of as a habit.
Well, we had a webinar on Alzheimer's disease a couple of months ago, and I found this, I'd never heard this before, but she said her mom, they took her, who was suffering from Alzheimer's disease, to go in to have a colonic or have her gut cleaned out. And for 2 weeks, she became lucid. She was clear and she remembered everything. And then after a while, I think it wore off, and she went back to being her old self.
Well, it would be great to get her another colonic then, because it pulls out a lot of toxic substances and inflammation. And, people, when we can reduce the toxic load in our body, we can feel so much better.
Right, and then the downside of colonics, too, could be that doesn't that disrupt the ecology of the balance of the probiotics, of the bacteria in the guts? Is that an issue? Because it just flushes everything out, right?
It does, but a normal gut will repopulate itself pretty quickly.
Okay.
It will. Mostly I'm on kind of, the digestive system works from the mouth down. It wasn't really designed to work with enemas and colonics, but they do work, and so it's like, there's definitely a place for colon hydrotherapy. And I think we just need to, it would be great if we had more studies on it, because we really don't.
I agree. Okay, well, we do have to wrap this up. Last question for the night. Can you give us the top 5 foods which help with intellectual focus? Anna wants to know that.
Top 5 foods with intellectual focus. Boy, I can't even begin to think about that.
Okay.
I really can't. It's like, I don't even know where I'd start there.
It is tough because so many people have just different opinions about what works and what doesn't work. I agree.
No, I mean, what I can say is I think, for me, it's not about a magic bullet. It's not, about like, should I only eat acai berries and dark chocolate? Do I need to always have, greens every single, green smoothies every day? It's about finding a balance and about having kind of right lifestyle and right balance with our environment. And so it's about detoxification. It's about having, I think one of the biggest drains on our intellectual prowess is stress. Because, we have information overload and we have stress. And so, I don't have like a snappy answer to that, because I don't think it's just a simple question.
I agree. Makes sense. Well, they can always check your book out, can they?
They can, yeah.
All right. Well, for those of you who are not logged on or are just listening on the phone, the websites to go to, www.innovativehealing.com. The other one is digestivewellnessbook.com. That's where Dr. Lipski's book is. There's another one, digestivewellnessforchildren.com. There's hawthorneuniversity.org, not .com, but .org. And the 5th website is nutritionandmind.com, nutritionandmind.com. Plus, there are tons of YouTube videos that if you just go in and type in Dr. Lipski's name, that would pull several YouTube videos up that you can watch for free, and there's a lot of great information there.
Yeah, the YouTube videos are all on innovativehealing.com too. If you go to Innovative Healing, you'll find everything. It gives you links to pretty much everything else.
Great. Well, Doc, hey, listen, thank you so much again. I hope we can do some more, because this is really, really, really important. And I think we need to get the word out as much as possible. And
thanks for having me. Thanks, Dr. David, for having me. It was fun.
I appreciate it. Well, it was fun, wasn't it? Thank you so much. And one more time, the page people should go to for the Facebook page.
Oh, it's called United in Health on Facebook, United in Health.
UnitedInHealth.com on Facebook, sorry. All right.
Yeah, I just want to say one more quick thing. I'm starting a mentoring group for nutrition professionals. So if you are a dietitian or a nutritionist and or you're a clinician and you use nutrition in your practice, next Wednesday I am starting a 10-month mentoring program. So, and we do it through webinars just like this. So where people bring case studies. So again, if you're interested, you can find out more at innovativehealing.com.
Fantastic. That would be a good one to join. All right, Doc, thank you again. Everyone, thank you folks for joining us tonight, and we shall see you all soon. God bless.